Miguel feels pretty good about his life, but he's worried about what's ahead. It was November, and I was glad to step away from the cold back home and enjoy a little heat in El Salvador. For many years, I've been able to travel down with the charity Shelter, helping to build simple houses for those in need. It's not a relaxing vacation, but it's extremely fulfilling, and I've been able to meet and get to know a lot of incredible people. That's actually where Miguel and I met. Miguel has a lot of positives in his life. He owns his own business, he has a fantastic wife, Mayra. They both are healthy, and they're excitedly waiting for their first child to be born. Miguel's a baker and owns a small local bakery that makes bread and sweet rolls for his community. Miguel's a hands-on owner, but he also employs a handful of people providing much-needed employment for these families. State-of-the-art is not how I would describe the bakery, but I can tell you from personal experience that the bread is fantastic. The day begins early for Miguel, around 4 a.m., lighting the fire in the old brick oven and starting to mix the dough. The first batch of warm bread is ready before lunch, and once it's cooled enough to transport, it's loaded onto the backs of several small motorcycles to be driven up and down the streets of the communities. While the sellers are out in the afternoon, a second batch is going into the oven to be ready around dinner time. At the end of the day, when the bread's all sold and cleanup is done, they've made 150 pounds of bread, and it's close to midnight. Thankfully, Miguel and Mayra's house is located just a few steps down the hill from the bakery. The business is good. Yes, it's a lot of work, but at the end of the day, it's a good business, providing employment and food for people in his community. Obviously, Miguel doesn't suffer from a poor work ethic. You would think that by working this hard, he would be doing really well for himself. But the reality is that he doesn't have much of a choice but to work that hard. By the time he purchases his supplies and pays his employees, he's left with very little. In fact, that's what keeps him up the few hours he's in bed each night. With their child on the way, how's he going to provide a house that's safe for their baby to grow up in? I was talking with one of the Shelter team members who sees a lot of desperate situations, and she told me that Mayra and Miguel were living in one of the worst houses I've ever seen. Thankfully, Miguel and Mayra have a different story to tell, thanks to generous people like you. They have a new house next to the bakery. It's not fancy, but when it rains, they no longer get wet. They have a door they can lock and a concrete floor for the baby to play on. I could tell you many more stories of hardworking people I've met through Shelter, but instead, I'd like to invite you to help write a new story for some families that we don't know yet. I'm going down again later this year, and can't wait to tell you the story of a family you helped when I return.